right, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. You made it to the end of the Innovation Summit. I know we're all tired, and that's why it's a perfect time to get some motivation going as we go back out into our regular day-to-day from here. I like the energy. So up next, for our final presentation of the summit, I am so excited to welcome Chad Shipley, who is the founder and owner of Sweat Bar Fitness. Chad made a big, bold leap in 2020, leaving behind a successful career as a management consultant and IT leader, if any of us know anything about that, to pursue his passion for health and human performance just as the world shut down. Spoiler alert, he tenaciously figured it out, and today his business is thriving. Sweat Bar Fitness is a coach-based training community that supports individuals at all fitness levels, helping them grow stronger both physically and mentally. Now, besides and beyond the gym, Chad has expanded into ultra-endurance races. He's competed both in a full-distance Ironman triathlon in Lake Placid, New York, and a 100-mile ultra trail run through the New River Gorge in West Virginia in just over 31 hours of continuous running. Wow. He also works as a leadership consultant, guiding teams and individuals on the path to peak performance. Please join me in giving a big, warm welcome to the one and only Chad Shipley.
Woo! All right, day 2. What is up? Thank you guys so much for sticking around for this presentation. I appreciate it. I know you guys are exhausted. 2 days of artificial intelligence. I'm going to do everything I can to make this really fun and exciting for all of you. So I'm going to start with a bold promise. What will you leave with, right? I'm going to ask you a couple questions before I do that. How many people in here love your boss? Raise your hand. I'm having a hard time seeing. Why? How many people are sitting next to their boss? Right. All right, how many people love the work that you do? All right, we still got hands in the air, that's good. How many people love the teams that you do that work with? Wow, okay. How many people love the company that you do that work with? Awesome. Okay, cool. Everyone's hands went up. How many people look forward to Monday morning as much as you do Friday afternoon? No hands. That was sweet. I actually saw like 2 hands. We got 2 hands back there? All right, cool. This is my bold promise that by the end of this presentation, you're going to look forward to Monday morning as much as you do Friday afternoon. Sounds crazy, right? It is crazy. We'll see. All right. Agenda for today. People matter. Value is why they stay. Standards solve problems. So people matter. The relationships that they have between those people matter. Their work matters, right? We're going to get into that. The value is why they stay. Ultimately, people knowing that their job means something, that they're being developed, that they're being coached, that they're given the opportunities, that they're being challenged, right? And then standards solve problems because standards reduce chaos, they reduce complexity, and they ultimately improve the performance of your teams, right? The bold promise I made earlier was kind of a joke, right? But what I want every single person here to leave with is the ability to go back and have an impact on the people that you're working with, start adding value to their day-to-day work lives, and be able to set some standards that are going to ultimately improve the performance of your teams. Everyone in here is a leader. You all have impact. You all have influence on the people that you work with every single day. So I hope you can take one thing away from this presentation to go back and let your people know that they matter, make them happy, and put some standards in place that are going to start to improve the performance and the culture. People, the spirit of culture. We'll start there. So I thought it'd be fun, because I think about this stuff a lot. I don't know why I think about it, but I always imagine like the year 2050, or some year far out. And the first thing I always think about is New York City. Has anyone ever thought about this? Like, what's New York City going to look like in the year 2050? Has anyone ever been to New York City, up in a skyscraper, and looked out on all the buildings in New York City, all the people walking to and from their jobs, carrying their briefcase, talking on the phone, walking in the pools? Have you guys all seen the landscape in New York City, right? What is that going to look like in 2050? Like, are people going to still be working in buildings? Anyone? I don't think so. No one even really wants to work in buildings anymore, right? So what are all those buildings going to look like in the year 2050? It's crazy to think about. Let's go a step further. Let's start to think about what our companies look like in the year 2050. I'm going to give you like a scenario, hypothetical. We have what's called an AI command center. It's an executive that's running our company. The reason it's running our company is because it knows more about our company than anyone in the company. It knows more about the market than anyone could possibly know about the market. It's already done the SWOT analysis. It knows more than our competitors know about us. It knows more about our competitors than the competitors know about themselves. It knows what products and services need to come to the market before we even think about them. The AI command center is doing all of our vendor relationship management. It's doing all of our vertical integration and planning that all out. It's doing all of our supply chain. It's interacting and overseeing all of our management with our customers. It's already kind of doing that for a lot of our different jobs. The AI command center is developing a strategic roadmap every single year. And it knows everything about the organization, knows every single department, knows all the business capabilities, and knows what things need to happen across all those departments. So we have operational things that are happening, right? We have run the business, that's happening. But to grow the business, to transform the business, the projects, AI command center is dictating all of those. And within each department, we have an AI leader that's getting all of those initiatives. They come into a room, and the AI virtual leaders are all meeting. There's an AI PMO. The AI PMO is never going to waste anyone's time in a meeting. It knows the purpose, the objective, the agenda. It's listing out the key takeaways, the decisions made, the action items. The AI leaders from the departments are going back to their teams. They're distributing the work. And then the people are doing the work. And the AI is going to give you real-time feedback on all of that work. You didn't do it fast enough. You didn't do it good enough, right? At this point, is anyone wondering what we are actually doing in this scenario? Like, what are people even doing, right? I don't know if that's going to be 2050. I don't think that world's too far off, to be honest, where we start to see AI really play an instrumental role alongside our executive leadership teams, if it's not already, right? My point in all of that is we're not there yet. People are still really important in the cultures that we have today. They are integral. Their jobs matter a lot, right? People are culture. Without people, you actually don't have a culture, right? You have that scenario where, I don't know, does anyone look forward to that kind of world? When I think about the work that I love, it's working on challenging things with people I really enjoy working with at a really high level. I like solving problems and I like performing at a really high level, right? So the year 2050 is a little bit scary to me. But we have a chance right now to start building a culture because as technology continues to increase, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. It is easier now than it will ever be to build a really good culture within your company. Right? It's only going to get harder. As technology continues to increase and expand the landscape, it's going to get harder and harder and harder to build a good culture within our companies. And ultimately, we want to build the place that people love and look forward to coming into Monday morning. We want to build the place that people never want to leave. The question is, how are we going to do that, right? So I'm going to give you a quick case study because this is the world that I lived for the last 5 years, ever since leaving corporate and opening my own gym right before the global shutdown, which was the worst financial decision I've ever made, called my $1 million bet, because I've lost $1 million in 5 years. But I started out with this idea I was going to be a gym. Woo! That was me. I'm like, I'm going to start a gym. And that's 2020. We had no members. It's a really bad idea. Now, we have 175 premium members, and we're no longer a gym, we're a community. We have a great culture, right? And you can see that by our 5-star reviews. So if you go Google Sweatbar Fitness right now, you'll see that we have roughly 145 5-star Google reviews, another 50 Facebook Google reviews. We have over 500 internal 5-star reviews. on our internal tracking system, hundreds of case studies and testimonials and all that. So the question is, how do we go from me struggling by myself to a community that is talked about a lot in Google reviews, right? If you look at our Google reviews, one of the things you'll see over and over and over again is the community we built, the culture that we built, etc. And I attribute it to this: meet the unexpected needs of your customers. So if they come for weight loss, which most of them do, give them that, but give them everything that they never knew they needed. Give them connection, give them meaning, give them a smile when they walk in, give them a therapy for an hour, let them kind of release the pressures of the world, get away from their kids, get away from their partners, get away from their work, right? Always be kind. So we give them all of these other things. Most of the people in our gym have built lifelong friendships. People that they never knew, now they have that connection, and it's almost annoying how good of friends they all are, hanging out together all the time, right? But it's awesome. They never knew that they had these voids in their life, and they're all being filled in the gym. But the reality is, we're a premium coaching-based fitness facility. So what does that mean? We charge 4 to 5 times the amount of like an LA Fitness, even more than a Planet Fitness. And we have none of the amenities. So we don't have a pool, we don't have a hot tub, we don't have a sauna, we don't have any of that stuff. So the question is, why in the world would anyone, my parents ask me this all the time, they can't figure out how this thing works. They're like, why in the world would anyone pay 5 to 10 times the amount of a gym to come to yours when you don't have any of the amenities? And I'm like, well, we have things that those gyms don't have. And those things are, when people come to the gym, the first thing we do is we sit them down and we listen to them. We ask them what their goals are. I literally talk to hundreds of people coming through the door. What are you trying to do? And then we teach them. I give them the simple things that are going to get them the most impact. I'm going to teach them about nutrition, teach them about exercise. Then I challenge them. Then I coach them. And then I keep them accountable. And they pay me 5 to 10 times more than just going to a gym on their own, because the gym on their own doesn't work. Right? I'm going to take a second here and have you guys all close your eyes. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So don't fall asleep on me, please. All right, so close your eyes. I want you to think about someone that has had a huge impact on your career. Just try to visualize that person, visualize the time, visualize the work, right? Did that person believe in you? Did they see something that you didn't see in yourself? Right? Think about the monumental impact that belief had on you as a person. Think about the opportunities that created down the road for you. That relationship. Now, keep your eyes closed, but raise your hand if that person, or maybe any person, any mentor you ever had, challenged you at some point, and it was really difficult for you to take that feedback. Just raise your hand. Okay. Now, that feedback, did that inevitably help you grow in your career? Right? Raise your hand if that was something that like later you realized was really critical. Right? Okay. Everyone can open their eyes. The reason I wanted to take you guys there is because that's the magical opportunity that we have every single day. As being leaders that have impact and influence, we can touch people's lives every single day. I know from running a coaching-based fitness facility, people want to be coached. They want feedback. They want to grow. But they only want that if they trust you and they know that you're giving them that feedback because you want them to grow. And you don't have selfish reasons for why you are giving them feedback or criticizing them, right? It is hard. Our egos get checked. But if they trust you, they are going to want that feedback, right? So I'm going to give you an opposite example. My daughter, she's 10 years old. She's in competitive cheer. And she tells me how difficult the coaches are on them, and they are really hard. It's actually a culture that I absolutely despise. This particular team, not competitive cheer, but this team. And so I sat her down one night and I started asking her these questions. I said, well, let me ask you this. Do you think that they're hard on you because they believe in you and they really think that you could be doing better? She says, no. And I say, okay, why do you think that they're so hard on you? And she said, because they want to win and they'll do whatever it takes to win. They don't care about any of us, right? That's never going to work. It doesn't work in corporate. I see it all the time. It doesn't work. It's hard to coach people from a relationship that's broken. You have to build the relationship. Once you have the relationship, then you're able to properly coach and instruct people. Now, I did 6 years of global management consulting. I did 8 years of leadership in industry, and I've ran a coaching-based gym for 5 years. If there's one thing I've learned in all of that, it's that coaching is incredibly difficult. Exceptional coaching, to coach people to a very high level of performance, is incredibly difficult. Companies are not in the coaching business. And frankly, most of them, at least from my experiences, don't invest anywhere near enough time in their leaders. Sorry, I don't even know why I'm carrying this around. They don't invest enough into their leaders in teaching them how to be coaches that can develop their teams. But meanwhile, this is the most critical thing in building a culture of people that perform at a high level and never want to leave the company. Before I get here, I got to ask a question because I don't want you guys to cheat. I'll go into companies and I'll talk to them about peak performance and getting their teams to perform at a higher level. And when I'm talking to leaders or managers, I always ask a simple question because it helps illustrate the point on the next slide, which is why I backtrack from that. So I ask you guys this question. Think about a very high-performing person, someone that just performs at a high level. They kick it, they knock it out of the park every time they get up the bat, and they're the person on the team that everyone wants on their team, right? Can you guys think of someone like that? You have someone on your team, maybe it's you. Now, tell me something about that person, like a trait or a characteristic or anything that makes them so high-performing. Does anyone have any? Just throw them out.
Hi.
Kind. They're kind. Awesome. I like that.
Positive.
Positive. Awesome.
Curious.
What was that? Curious. Okay, yeah. Curious. Trying to figure things out. Open-minded. Disciplined. Awesome. Tenacious. That was great. Others. Keep throwing them out. The more we have, the better.
Dedicated.
Supportive. I like that. Dedicated. Inclusive. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Awesome.
Confident. Awesome. I love it.
Accountable.
Accountable. Right? They're accountable to themselves. Awesome. Any others?
Fun.
Fun. They're fun. They're fun to be around. It's actually a very underrated skill. Seriously. Likability, I think, is one of the most underrated skills out there. Those are awesome. So the good news is every time I ask this question, I get the exact same answers, right? So now I'll take you to this. This is a framework that I use to develop people, to develop teams. If you saw it somewhere else, I didn't copy it. It works the best for me. Any company that I've ever worked for, even if they don't use this model, they're using this model. They're just using it subconsciously. They don't even realize they're using it, right? So we always look at technical skills, right? Which I didn't hear a single one of technical skills. And then we have character traits, which are all the things that you guys just described of what make a person a high performer. They're driven, their personality, they're trustworthy, they're resilient, they're growth-minded, they're articulate, they're open-minded, you can go on and on and on. Now, these people in the lower left, you fire them or you don't hire them, right? What is it? There's a saying for this, right? Hire character, train skill, right? You don't want those people on your team because they don't know anything, they have no technical skills, and they don't have any drive to learn anything, right? So you just don't want them on your team. The people that are the far right but low on technical skills, I always call these people the Rudies. Anyone ever see the movie Rudy? Yeah, like he sucked at football, but you wanted Rudy on your team. Like he was the guy that like got everyone going, right? The Rudys of the world are awesome because they're willing to do whatever it takes. You can train them, right? They have all the good character traits. They're trustworthy, they're dependable, they show up on time, they're resilient, they're open-minded, they're growth-minded, and the technical stuff, you train them. Then there's the other side, right? Far left, very high technical skills, but they just suck to have on your team. These are like the Antonio Browns of the world. Anyone, you guys all know Antonio Brown? Like he can catch a ball really good, but no one wants him on the team because he's a disaster to work with, right? And then there's the people on the far right. So these are the people that have the high technical skills, which I just define as skills required to do your job. So whatever your job is, the skills required to do. If you're a project manager, you got to know how to create a critical path. Boom, you got a technical skill. You got to know the difference between a risk and an issue, which most project managers I've worked with don't. That's technical skill, right? Those people you're going to promote over and over and over again, right? Because they just want to take on more and more and more and more. They have the skills. They keep learning new skills. They have the drive, they're disciplined, all that, right? So the reason I really like this model is because it helps zoom in on what are we really trying to develop our people with. So everything that you guys said, has anyone ever had a conversation with someone on trying to coach them to be better at that thing? Has anyone tried to coach someone on being more likable? We don't even talk about those kind of things in the corporate world, right? Anytime I was in performance reviews, it was like, how well do you write? Which is important, but I mean, there's a lot of other things that we're not really talking about. So this is the model I developed for my teams because it helps me really focus on these things, which are most of the things that people need developed on. This is the problem, I think, that is happening right now with middle management in companies. Because the up-and-coming generations are starting to wonder why they're reporting to someone that doesn't know anywhere near as much as they might know on the technical side, and they're not really getting developed. No one's pouring into them. No one's really mentoring them and teaching them how to, all the things that truly matter about them being a higher performer, right? This happened to me. Bill was one of the guys, just for everyone's, that when I think about someone that believed in me, had a huge impact on my career, is Bill Forwangler. And there was a point in my career where I went to Bill and I said, look, there's changes in the organization. He was a CIO. I was a manager. And I said, the people that you're going to put me under, I'm not going to learn anything from them. There's nothing that they're going to be able to pour into me. I like reporting to you. Because I was reporting to him, and then he got promoted to CIO, and I wasn't going to report to him anymore. And he probably didn't know this, but if I was going to report to one of those other two idiots, sorry, Bill, because it wasn't you, but I think you might have liked them. I don't know. I didn't like them. I was leaving the organization. They weren't going to give me anything. Bill said, okay, then you're going to stay under me. And he continued to let me develop under him for another couple of years. And that was instrumental in my career, what I was able to learn over those years and, be promoted up. When I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers, they had this idea of, I don't know if they still do, but they had this idea of performance coaches. So I didn't actually have a manager that I reported to. There was no hierarchical, however you say that, structure. It was just you had a performance coach, and that performance coach's job was to meet with you often. They were constantly getting feedback from the project teams that you were working with. They were getting as much feedback as they could from the clients, and they were constantly going through rigorous models of trying to figure out, where you could use some development. And I loved that. Oftentimes, we actually got to pick our performance coach. If we were working with someone very closely on some projects, they would say, hey, maybe it makes more sense for you to go under them as your performance coach. And then I got real-time feedback all the time. How many people in here dread performance review processes? Most people do. Most companies are terrible at them, right? It's just a check-the-box exercise, we got to say we did that, get through. I was just working with someone that was going through this. They were exceptional at their job. They poured everything into this company for the last 15 years. They knew more than anyone else in their role. And their boss was leaving. They brought a new person in. There was no documentation of any of the work that they've done. It was an end-of-year review. She thought she was getting a big promotion. The new manager basically just said, I don't really know anything about you. Nothing's been documented, etc. Like, maybe we'll look at it again next year. She was completely deflated, and that company almost lost a huge resource. Luckily, someone in another department realized how good she was and brought her over there into a role that was a much higher level role and much more responsibility, and now she's thriving over there, right? The performance review process, I actually used to hate it, and I ended up loving it. The people that raise your hand that actually do one, are you guys doing them like quarterly? Twice a year? 3 times a year? 4 times a year? Yearly? Like once a year? Does anyone like think that it's bad to do them very frequently with the people that like you're at least in charge of coaching?
Second, long or short.
Yeah, I mean, people don't like doing them. They want them to be done. Like, check the box. We got to get through it. And I think it's because it's always this like conversation around should you be promoted, should you make more money, and that's like we're missing the whole point. That exercise I did where I had you close your eyes and is there someone that believes in you, that like really like wants you to get better? We have that opportunity every single time we're meeting with our teams. That's what I really want to drill home today, right? Imagine if your team was able to give you Google reviews, because I have to live in that world. I have to live in the world where like these people can say that I'm not adding value to their lives, right? All right, let's move on. So if we flip the model, right? So now we're no longer evaluating the person's evaluating the company. And this again is what happens, but it just happens subconsciously. So this is the way that they're thinking about things, right? So you have pay benefits, so it's like, okay, like this person's gonna make $10,000 or $20,000 more if they go to that job, so what's gonna keep them here? It's not the ping pong table that you set up in the back room, right? It's the company and the team traits, the relationships that they've built, the development that they're getting from their coach that's pouring into them, the people that they're working with that they actually love working with, the challenges that they're given on a day-to-day basis, right? All of these things are the company traits that you as a leader have a chance to give back to the people that are working with you. So I love like stories, so I'm gonna tell you a story of something that happened to me that I think happens in a lot of companies, and it just is used to illustrate the frustration that I think we see on a day-to-day basis. So I was working for a $2 billion company, right? Really big company. And the business was screaming, we need this new system. It's going to replace all these systems. It's going to, replace jobs and give us all this return on investment. And so we in IT were getting pounded with like, you got to do this for us. You got to do this for us. You got to do this for us. No strategic plans, not in a roadmap. It's just out of nowhere. They want us to come up with putting in this new ERP system that's going to save them millions upon millions of dollars, right? So I get tasked with doing a feasibility study that took me about 3 to 4 months. And I go through all the departments, I talk to all the people. Meanwhile, these people are probably the people that are gonna get replaced by the system. Talking to them, doing the analysis, working with the finance teams, figuring out the integrations and what that's gonna save and all the return on investment, putting it into a huge business case. The big day comes. We get every executive from a $2 billion company into a room. CEO, CIO, CFO, CMO, all of them. There had to be 12 people in the room. The vendor from the ERP company that we were going to be putting into place, the president of that company was in the meeting, right? So I present this big business case. Here's everything you need to know. Summary level, here's the upfront implementation costs, here's your payback period, here's your return on investment. Boom, my job's done. Everyone said, awesome, you did a great job. They come back in without the vendor, and they say, who in here thinks we should do this? Every executive put up their hand. We should do this immediately. It's the number one thing we should be doing. Put it on the roadmap. The president and the CEO, the CFO, they talk for a little bit, they come back and they say, we agree, we think we should do this too, but we can't afford the implementation cost and the payback period's too far out. And I'm thinking like, that was the showstopper? I could have told you in 5 minutes it was gonna cost more than $2 million, like without looking at anything, without talking to anyone. And what that ultimately showed me was that like there's just chaos in the organization. We went on this rampage talking to all these teams, wasting all of their time, putting together this huge business case, and no one thought to ask the president or the CFO if we could afford a $2 million implementation. That kind of stuff drives me crazy, and we do it all the time, right? Move through here. So, as we get into technology advancing, right, we're going to continue seeing more and more problems in the culture that we have. So, as technology continues to change the way we work, our people work more in distributed environments, they will. Technical skills become more prominent, character traits dwindle, companies become bigger, mission statements become looser, culture will sacrifice. So this is where standards come to play. Create standards that drive alignment. So I just gave that example of the ERP. After that happened, one of the big financial people that reported to the CFO came up to me and said, listen, if anyone asks you to do any more feasibility studies, unless it has a payback period of 3 months, don't do it. Tell them you're not looking at it. Because they all realized how much of a waste of time this was. And so I said, well, none of these initiatives, they're all going to cost over a couple $1 million, and none of them are going to have a payback period of 3 months. And he said, then don't do any of them. Don't even look at them. So I'm like, well, that's kind of awesome. Now I have a standard. I'm not going to waste my time on any of these things. So now when business partners were coming and they were screaming about all these things, I said, listen, I know right off the bat that's not going to have a 3 month, that's not a priority right now. And it created so much simplicity because it brought focus to the things that we were actually working on that were moving the ball forward, right? I'll give another example really quickly. When I was a PMO director, one of the things that we started to get feedback on was that there were a lot of meetings happening, and there was a lot of people in those meetings that didn't need to be in them. And then at the end of the meeting, no one really saw any value in the meeting. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I see this all the time. So we, took a step back and said, okay, how do we fix this? Let's create simple standards for meetings. So we said, every meeting has to have a purpose and objective. As the PMO, the manager, project manager, you have to do a couple of things in each meeting. You have to talk or identify the takeaways that came out of that meeting. And there should never be more than 5. So 3 to 5 takeaways. We used to have project managers that would write a full script of everything that happened in the meeting. We said do 3 to 5 takeaways. Also, put in any decisions that were made and who made them, and then any action items that came out of the meeting, and that's it. But you have to send that out for every single meeting. What ended up happening was, not only were the project managers doing that, all of the people that, in any meeting, they all started doing that. They started copying that format. I saw meeting minutes coming from the CIO. There were key takeaways that I got out of this meeting, decisions made, and action items. It was such a simple standard, but it solved the problem of all of these meetings that we were having with the wrong people. No one really had focus of the meeting because we weren't setting purpose and objectives, and we actually had clear things that were coming out of those meetings, right? Another thing we did was create a Q&A document instead of our SOPs. When I took over the PMO, we had a 35-page standard operating procedures, and I could never figure out how to find the answer to any of my questions. So I just started saying, I'm going to list all my questions, And we're going to go figure out the answer to all these questions, and then we're going to organize it in a way where it's really easy to find, and that's going to be our standard operating procedures for how we work. And it was like beautiful because it was so simple, and it was right in front of us. These are the things that we can do to start impacting our culture, right? And the teams that we're working with, right? Is anything I'm saying, like, do you guys relate to this stuff? Okay. I've been out of the game a little bit for 5 years, but I come back and I do some consulting, but I'm doing it for the teams that need that consulting, so I just wanted to make sure. You know, another thing I did, I actually got brought in as a consultant one time because we were talking about work from home. It's new. Like, some companies were built as work from home companies. That's how they started. So all of their operating procedures were developed as a work from home model. We're diversified. We're all across the world. But a lot of companies were shut down during COVID, and they were forced into a work from home model. Well, they weren't built from the ground up as work from home. So now the question is, like, how do we start setting some standards, the expectations that we want out of our teams? Let's just create a standards guide so that they know what to do, so that they know how to show up on camera. Something that simple can go a really long way. I'm just gonna tell you, like, high-performing people actually like high standards. They want high standards in the culture, right? Mediocre people don't like high performers, and they don't like high standards, right? So if you start setting high standards, the mediocre people are gonna fall off. I talk to people all the time, like, we can't get these people out of our organization. I'm like, well, start building a high-performing organization, and they're gonna get left behind. I know it's easier to say than to do, but I think we start with these things, right? You have to recognize that people right now are still a vital part of your organization. The value that you give those people is what's gonna make them ultimately wanna stay. And the standards you set within your teams, even simple, I tried to find the simplest examples that had huge impact in some of the work that I've done. Those go a really long way. I'll end on one final example because this one was really tricky for me. Of all the time I spent in the corporate world, running a gym, I started having coaches have a problem with other coaches because they coach in the same class. And so what started happening was one coach, not meaning to do it, would trump another coach. So someone would be working with someone, and then another coach would come over thinking that they're being helpful and start giving some corrective movements. Well, that showed the other coach that they were doing it wrong or whatever, and then there would be disputes. And this ended up becoming a pretty big problem. So I'm thinking, like, okay, how do I solve this with a simple standard? And I ended up coming up with this. If a coach is coaching someone, you're not allowed to coach them. And it was that simple. We put it out and we just said, look, the intentions are always there. None of you are trying to trump the other coach, but it's happening in the eyes of the member, and it's happening in the eyes of the first coach. So let's just not do it. And I put that out there, and right away, one of the coaches came to me and said, I do this all the time, and I like direct feedback. Was it me that you're talking about? And I said, all of us do it, which is why I put it out as a standard, but yes, it was you I was talking about. And it made me realize that I'm being a bad leader. I'm not coaching the way that I need to be coached. Now, ironically, all my coaches work in other jobs, right? This guy is actually a IT leader. He works for a big organization, but he's a coach in my gym. He's like, look, man, shoot me straight. Like, is it me? Because I don't mean to do it, but I can see how maybe I'm overbearing. And I'm like, yeah, it's you, you know? It's tough to have those challenging conversations. Like, hard conversations are hard to have. But if you can figure out ways to build trust with the people, which is key, not like my daughter and her cheerleading coach, right? Whatever that cheerleading coach tells her, she's never gonna think it's about her being a better cheerleader. It's all about them winning as a team, right? If you can build the trust with people, then you have an opportunity to actually coach them and to give them the feedback. And here's the other kicker. You have to be coachable yourself, bottom up, right? I have a head strength coach that is infinitely more knowledgeable around strength training than I am. and he coaches me a lot. And I'll be honest, like running a gym is different than running a leadership team or running a team in the corporate world. And I fall down a lot on things that I'm not doing really well, and I have to listen to that feedback. The thing is that feedback can actually be a gold mine. It usually is. People give it in a way where it's always not super kind, but you can always pull off strands of feedback that end up being a gold mine. So a member says something really crappy to me, or a coach says something really crappy to me. They're not really good at giving the feedback, and it hurt my feelings. But at the end of the day, when I really take a step back and look at what they're trying to say or why they're saying it, I can find something that I'm doing at a level that is below where I should be doing it, and then I start to pick myself up from there. So I think if we lead by example, if we coach when we have the opportunities to, and we do it in a way where we're doing it because we want to develop our people, and we let them coach us back, we have a chance at building a culture like no other. Because I'm telling you, like, at least from everything I'm seeing, this is all going away. We're getting more and more distributed, right? The middle management's being cut out of companies. It's going more flat. I mean, I think there's some things happening where you have coaching opportunities, but it's all going away. And I think the whole performance management process is to the point where, I mean, is there anyone in here that actually enjoys performance management processes? Not a single person, right? Either giving them or receiving them, right? That's terrible. That just sucks. I mean, think of that from a sporting perspective, right? Like high school athletes. What if they never wanted to be coached? Or what if the coaches said, I hate developing my athletes? Good. Sounds weird, right? All right. I'm not going to bore you guys too much longer. So these are my key takeaways. I didn't memorize these, so I'm just going to read them really quickly. People are the breath, the spirit, and the life of the culture. The value you give your people will dictate how much and how fast they grow, the quality of relationships that they have, how much they contribute back, how happy they are, and how long they stay. I truly believe that. It's the value you give them. People want to be coached. That's a really good key takeaway because I spent a long time thinking that wasn't true. I myself always thought of myself as a very high-performing person, and I didn't like to be coached for a long time until I found a coach that actually coached me and believed in me and showed me how I could get better. Thanks, Bill. People perform at the standards you set, and having simple standards will eliminate cultures of chaos. Like that one simple standard that financial person gave me eliminated so much chaos for me. I was at a point where I don't want to work in a company like this. There's no transparency. There's no strategy. There's no communication. All these departments are doing 3,000 things in 3,000 different directions. And my job at the time was meaningful. I pulled together a business case. I gave the executives everything that they wanted. They got to stand up in front of them. I felt great. But at the end of the day, it all felt meaningless. I didn't know where we as a company were even going. I didn't think that they did. I lost all faith in our leadership after that meeting. Because I'm thinking, they don't even talk. These high-level business leaders are demanding this solution, and these ones are saying, it's over $2 million, we can't do it. Okay, final takeaway, people are not chasing money. I know it seems like that, especially in the world of technology. People are like, hey, I can make 20,000 more over there, 20,000 more over there. How are we going to keep our people? I truly, after a certain amount, they're not really chasing money anymore. They might say they are, but ultimately, they're chasing meaning and connection. They want their job to matter. They want to do their job with people that they really like, and they want to be held to a high standard. At least the really good ones do. I believe that. And that's it. With a plea to hire me. I'm just kidding. Well, kind of kidding. If there's one thing that I became really good at over the last couple of years, it's getting people on the same page and moving the ball forward. So if there is any area of your organization that you feel like you need someone to come in and help get things kind of all on the same page, or everyone to get to a point where like maybe they're not getting what they wanted, but we're getting to an agreement, we're moving things forward, then please consider reaching out to me, because I do a lot of this now. I'm moving back into the corporate world. My gym runs itself. I'm still there a lot. I work out there a lot. I'm friends with 175 people, and we have a good time. But I have 15 coaches, and the whole thing's operational. So I'm going back into teams. I do performance and coaching workshops. I do HR and wellness consulting. And I do a lot of business and IT strategy, where I help IT teams get the business strategy first, and then we go and actually look at the IT strategy to align to that. Other than that, I'm going to open up to questions. I think I'm good on time already.